David Lombardi comes to us courtesy of The Athletic. Good to see you out there at 49er camp yesterday. David, as always, all over all things Niners. And today is a huge day, Brock Purdy Day, as he returns to the party. But, David, first off, thank you for coming on. How you doing, man?
Great. How are you?
We're fantastic. Maybe a little bit of an odd place to start because we were just having a conversation that is very much sort of off to the side of Brock Purdy. There's been what I would call more talk about QB4 than the norm at an NFL camp. Kyle Shanahan, in the last 48 hours, has sent out a lot of compliments to Brandon Allen. I don't think he can end up on the practice squad. He's too good. So if we all agree that Brock's got a roster spot, I firmly believe that Sam's got a roster spot. How does Brandon Allen get a spot on this roster? Why is Kyle giving him so much time?
Brandon Allen?
Yes, Brandon Allen. Like, why is QB4 getting this kind of discussion and this kind of reps?
Well, he took reps only with the third team today, and, I mean, you just look at what happened to the 49ers last year. They literally ran out of quarterbacks. They need as robust and strong of a room as possible. You just saw Joe Burrow go down with an injury today. Guess who his backup last year was? It was Brandon Allen. So the 49ers, I think they feel they're in an extremely fortunate situation to have the former Cincinnati number 2 as their number 4 right now. They want option power in the quarterback room. Option power can give you a lot of things. One of the things it can obviously give you is leverage at the cutdown deadline because other teams might be needing quarterbacks. More Joe Burrow-like situations might happen over the course of training camp and then the preseason. So if you have option power, you might be in a position where you can wheel and deal. But I think the 49ers, first and foremost, are looking to stack this room so that they can insulate themselves in the event of catastrophe, and that catastrophe did hit last season. So, yes, if everybody remains perfectly healthy between now and when they cut down the roster at the end of next month, it is likely that the 49ers don't have an option out of these 4 quarterbacks to land on the practice squad because Brandon Allen was a number 2 last year, and he's probably good enough to be at least a number 3 somewhere else. But we're not at the roster cutdown deadline yet. So you shouldn't just let go of a good football player just because you want to let go of him, just for fun. You're not going to do that. You're going to try to keep as many of the players at the most important position as possible on your roster for as long as you possibly can. Last year, the 49ers did that with Jimmy Garoppolo, ended up being the right move. They benefited tremendously from that. And this year, they're going to try to maintain as much quarterback capital as possible for as long as possible, and that's what they're doing with Brandon Allen.
And from QB4, we go to QB1, who made his preseason practice debut today. What did you see from Brock Purdy in terms of the arm strength and just how he looked in his first day back out there?
Well, I think that the first thing that you look at and what you really want to make sure, happens, with success on that first day, you want to see the throws. You want to see the arm strength. He's coming off of elbow surgery, right? So you're worried about a weak arm. You're worried about a lack of velocity. And none of those things was true with Brock Purdy. He actually overthrew Brandon Aiyuk, or he overthrew Deebo Samuel, and he overthrew Juwan Jennings. He threw one a little bit high to Brandon Aiyuk, but it had a lot of mustard on it, and Aiyuk climbed the ladder to go get it. So from a physical standpoint, Brock Purdy looks like he has his velocity back. It looks like he's got the throwing depth back, and that's what the 49ers really wanted to see on day one. They also expected to see some rust, and they got plenty of that. He was only 3 for 10 today. He threw an interception to Deshaun Gibson. The timing was a little bit off. I mean, it was what you would expect for a quarterback who has not run an 11-on-11 practice in 6+ months, right? So that was what happened with Brock Purdy today, but I think it's really, really important to keep the big picture in mind. And the big picture is that he had surgery on March 10th. The fact that we're talking about him throwing too high or throwing too deep on July 27th with no restrictions in training camp, I think is remarkable. It's been only 4.5 months since the surgery, and Purdy was back out there. So the next step is knocking off that rust.
David Lombardi, all over the 49ers for The Athletic, is with us here on Willard and Dibbs 95.7 The Game. So let's talk about that a little bit more, what you just discussed. Because it's 4.5 months, and because so many people were told this is a 6-month injury, you heard a lot of people start to whisper today, gosh, it feels like they're rushing him back. What would you say to someone who says this feels rushed?
Well, anybody who says this feels rushed is pretending like they know more about this than the top elbow specialist in the world, probably, and Keith Meister, at least as far as UCL surgeries go. Dr. Keith Meister cleared Brock Purdy to return. So I don't know of any authority that's better suited to speak on the subject than Meister. By the way, in case you need to know his credentials, he's a team physician for the Texas Rangers, so he specializes in these UCL injuries since we see them a lot in baseball. And Meister conducts so many Tommy John surgeries, so many internal brace surgeries. Purdy underwent the internal brace technique. And then the main physical therapist who oversaw the rehab process is Keith Coker. He's based down in Arizona. He's also familiar with this through the MLB with all these pitchers. So between Keith Meister and Keith Coker, you have two guys who cleared Brock Purdy fully. The 49ers are actually slow playing this in relation to everything else. The 49ers have said, even though this guy's fully cleared, we're going to give him every third day off from throwing. We're going to take what he was doing during his rehab, and we're going to extend that into the first 2 weeks of training camp just to play it safe. So I think, anybody saying that this is a rush back for Brock Purdy, that sounds like a really emotional judgment that's not tethered in reality, because the truth of the matter is the 49ers are slow playing this after Purdy's been cleared by a very renowned doctor.
So with the 2 on and the 1 off schedule being intact, I'm assuming that means tomorrow he's going to be a go to throw and then off Saturday. Does that mean on Sunday, if they're fully padded up, that Brock Purdy will be out there? Or is there a sense that once we get to padded physicality portion of training camp that they still might slow play him more?
I think that the schedule is going to revolve around Brock Purdy's schedule. So since Saturday is a day off for both the 49ers and for Purdy because it's the third day, then I think he should be back out there Sunday. So we'll see him Sunday and Monday. Monday is the first day with pads on for the 49ers. And then presumably if the schedule continues for Purdy, we'll see Trey Lance and Sam Darnold splitting the first team reps on Tuesday, right? And then Brock Purdy will be back on Wednesday with the 49ers. Well, Wednesday's a day off again, right? So then it'll be Thursday, Friday, and that leads almost into the joint practices with the Raiders, which are the following week, starting on August 10th. And there's a little parallel path here between Purdy and Jimmy Garoppolo, which I find interesting because Garoppolo was recently fully cleared from the foot injury that he suffered with the 49ers, and he's working back into playing 100% of the time for the Raiders in practice, and same thing is happening with Purdy. So we'll probably see both of the 49ers' most recent starting quarterbacks on the practice field in Vegas, which should be a spectacle.
David Lombardi, The Athletic, is with us. I'm not concerned about this Nick Bosa thing at all, but what do you think's going on here? What is the plan for him?
Well, I mean, Nick is in a situation where it's not Nick, really. It's his representation. Brian Ayrault is running the show right now. I think if you talk to Nick Bosa, he's somebody that loves being out on the football field. He wants to be in the facility, but from a business standpoint, that's what this is. His stock has never been hotter than it is right now. Nick Bosa is the reigning defensive player of the year. He's got a chance to become the highest paid defensive player ever. You want to make sure that you cash out with the best possible contract when it is your time to negotiate a new one, and obviously Nick Bosa is in that window, and the 49ers on the other side have to be very, very deliberate about this because they just can't award a contract that is not carefully crafted to fit into their salary cap plan. They already have over $270 million of liability on the books for 2024, and Bosa's contract is only going to increase that number. So if you look at that in terms of what the salary cap might be, it was $225 million this year. The NFL has all these new media deals with YouTube and Amazon Prime, all that good stuff. That's going to really increase the salary cap by a lot. in all likelihood this next year, but it probably won't increase to 270 or 280 million, which is what the 49ers already own in 2024. So they're going to have to really maneuver, and every dollar has to count to the 49ers. It really matters at this point so that they can keep this team and this roster sustainable in 2024 and beyond. So that's why this deal has taken a while, because the 49ers have to play hardball. Bosa has every right to play hardball. One could argue that he should be playing hardball right now. And ultimately, these deadlines do create action, and I think there is action happening right now. Negotiations are happening right now, but they're not hard deadlines. Last year, Deebo Samuel held in because they couldn't forgive his fines last year. The rules for Deebo Samuel were different, and he didn't sign until day 6 of training camp, right? So we're not even at that point yet with Nick Bosa, and I assume that this deadline is going to create enough action to see a contract signed at some point here during training camp.
David Lombardi here on 95.7 The Game. You mentioned the liability that they have next year, and that's counting Brandon Aiyuk and the fifth-year option at $14.1 million. How much can he play his way into the financial stratosphere based on what we've seen through 2 days of camp, David?
Well, the 49ers, I think, have a relatively simple formula, but it's served them well as they've built this roster, and it goes as follows. If you're an A-list player that the 49ers have drafted and developed under this regime, and I say under this regime because they obviously traded DeForest Buckner away. I thought that was an exceptional circumstance. But if you're an A-lister that this regime has developed, they're going to pay you. They're going to want to keep you around. Right now, they're determining whether or not Brandon Aiyuk is a true A-list player, and it's really trending in that direction. He put up a 1,000-yard receiving season in 2022. To me, it seems that he's uncoverable in training camp. I think he's been the biggest star so far out there for the 49ers. And if he, in the midst of, it's a crowded offense. It's not easy to get targets in this offense. You have to stand out because there are a lot of other good options. If he's able to deliver another 1,000-yard season in 2023, then I think Brandon Aiyuk is going to be in that A-list caliber, and I think he's going to be a guy that the 49ers are going to want to pay. And the formula, it's like surfing a wave because that salary cap gets bigger and bigger every year. So theoretically, you can afford to pay more and more A-listers. But you've got to make sure that those A-listers are, A, all producing for you, even as they get a little bit older. And B, you have to make sure that the other positions are taken care of on a cost-efficient basis. So paying Aiyuk, if it gets to that point, and I think it's trending in that direction for the 49ers, is going to be really reliant on them getting production out of their draft picks, getting production out of their bargain bin free agents, because that's how you afford to pay guys like Nick Bosa, guys like Brandon Aiyuk, guys like Deebo Samuel, in consecutive seasons.
David, I've heard you talk a lot about that formula. Homegrown, if you produce, you're going to get your next contract. I hear so many people say, yeah, if they do that with Brandon, they're going to have to trade Deebo. Do you think there's financial room in the wide receiver room for both?
I think there is, but I think that the 49ers have to keep on surfing the wave as effectively as they have in recent years. And by that, I mean you have to continue getting extraordinary production from lower round draft picks, because lower round draft picks are cheaper than first round draft picks. You have to continue developing veterans who might not have played so well elsewhere. You have to continue yielding really good production out of them when they're on your roster. A great example was Arden Key a couple years ago, right? Because those veterans that he picked up off the bargain bin, you're only going to be paying them $1 to $2 million. But if you're getting $5 to $6 million worth of production out of them, that's real cost efficiency. And the 49ers have been able to do that because their coaching staff has done a great job with those types of players, and their scouting department has found the players that fit with what the coaching staff is trying to do. So if the 49ers continue seeing spots 10 to 53 on their roster, if they continue seeing them deliver the kind of production they've delivered over the past 6 or 7 years, well, then they're going to be able to afford to pay the superstars. They're going to be able to afford to grow that core of star players to around 10 players, which was what, paying Brandon Aiyuk would do.
And does it become even more of a spotlight on Christian McCaffrey and his health because he's on the hook for 2 more years at bigger money than most running backs are now getting? Is it critical for McCaffrey to stay healthy or possibly become a cap casualty at some point?
Well, yeah, I think that's the case for everyone, right? In the NFL, especially once you pass the guaranteed portions of your deal, and Christian McCaffrey It's past that. If you stop producing due to injury or whatever other reason, a team, especially one that's up against the cap like the 49ers in 2024, is going to have to take a long, hard look at your contract. Last year, though, Christian McCaffrey was one of the most valuable players in football. Might have been the most valuable player on the 49ers. I mean, the way that offense transformed after he joined them, it's really, it's funny because we're talking about all these debates surrounding pay and the running back position. Christian McCaffrey is, he's one of a kind. He's a receiver on top of a running back, and he impacts the offense. And, last year, if you looked at the metrics, he impacted the offense as much as a good quarterback would impact the offense. So the 49ers right now believe, and they're right in believing this, that they're getting Christian McCaffrey in a bargain. You're right, though. If he gets hurt or if his production declines, all of a sudden it might not look like so much of a bargain. So it is a year-by-year thing in the NFL.
David, great stuff, man. Great to see you yesterday. I know we'll be talking to you more throughout the season.
Awesome, guys. It was great. Great seeing both of you out of practice and looking forward to whenever you guys can make it back down there.
Yep.
Thanks,
it's
David.
coming soon. Absolutely. There he is, David Lombardi, the Athletic on the 49ers situation.